Okay, so hello everyone. I'm gonna show you in this video how to compile a different model, a custom weapon model, into Soldier of Fortune 2 using the animations of a weapon that already exists in the game. So for instance, you find a nice looking custom MP5 model on the internet and you want to replace the default MP5 model in the game with it. I'm gonna show you a part of the process of how to do it. I'm not gonna cover all of the basics in this video, like installing the SDK, or how to prepare the model, but I'm gonna cover how to compile it using 3ds Max 2022. Just beware that a lot of versions actually work. Back in the day, it was recommended to use 3ds Max 5, but I've also worked with 3ds Max 9, 3ds Max 2011, 2017, if I'm not mistaken, and I'm using 2022. Just before we begin, I think it's important that you visit jkhub.org. This is a website of some guys that actually mod Jedi Knight. It's a Star Wars game, and I think it uses, at least one of the games uses the same engine as SOF2. So they have a lot of resources there. So for instance, I'm not finding it right here, but let me look for it on Google. For example, you might need a GLM, which is the model extension file in SOF2, GLM importer, jkhub. Let's see here. Oh, see? You get in this website the GLM importer from 3ds Max version 6, which is very old, to 2022, which is what I'm using right now. So yeah, you might not need the GLM importer for what we are doing, but you will definitely need the .xsi exporter. Here it is. Look, I'm using this one, which is for 3ds Max 2022. So okay, let's get started. So I have that plugin installed. I have 3ds Max 2022 installed, and I'm gonna use models that were exported in the FBX format, which is a format that works. I don't know the specifics. I don't know exactly why things are the way they are, but I'm gonna cover how to get the weapons into SOF2. So I'm gonna import my model. It's a custom MP5 that I got from Battlefield Play for free. Here it is on my desktop. It's this file, the first person model. So one thing that you want to make sure when you import an FBX model is that you have here in the include tab, you have add as file content, that you uncheck the smoothing groups option, the smoothing groups box, untick it, untick animations, and in advanced options make sure that scale factor is 1. Okay, this is very important. This is not the way it is by default, or at least for me it was not. The scale factor was not 1 by default, so I took some time to figure that out. Okay, so here's the model. So it's an MP5A4. Logically, we're gonna want to replace the MP5 with it. So we need to understand how the MP5 animations work in the game. For that, you need to have the SDK installed, and you need to open Modville. Okay, so if you guys need it, just say in the comments. I'll make a video about how to set up Modville with the correct versions of things and resources from JKHub. But anyway, so I've got the models here. I'll open the default MP5 from SOF2. Here's the model. And as you can see, it has these bones, right? It's the gun, trigger, clip 1, bolt 1, and option 1. They have different functions. For example, the parts of the model that are associated with clip 1 are the ones that will be removed when reloading, so the magazine, of course. There's the bolt, which is associated to the bolt, the trigger, which is associated to the trigger, and the option 1 in this case is associated to the suppressor. The animations in SOF2 are not very elaborated, so the bolt does a pretty simple movement, and the trigger doesn't even move, but we assign it anyway. So anyway, what I'm showing you here is the bones that you need to know. So okay, to get started, so import the model. Now you go to this panel on the side and create, then you go to helpers, this kind of ruler thing here, I don't remember its name. Go to dummy, create a little square, a little cube of any size, place it at 0, 0, 0, and name it skeleton underscore root. Now you're gonna Control C, Control V, make sure you tick copy instead of instance, and you're gonna name it mesh root. Okay, now we're gonna create the bones. So again, you go to this right panel here, and you click those gears icon, the systems icon, and you click bones. Now here's one thing that's very important. You need to set your decimal separator as a dot, not a comma. Otherwise, this one will not work properly. So after you've set your decimal separator as a dot, you need to set the bone width as 0.77 and height as 0.77. Some old tutorials actually told to use the taper at 90%, but it doesn't make a difference. I've compiled a huge load of models without using the taper. I think from what I've looked up, it's more to help you understand how you're setting your stuff up. It doesn't make a difference for what we're doing. So okay, I'm gonna create a bone. Now that I've set the width and height, I'll place it near the origin. So click, click, and delete again that little part that comes at the end. Oops. So select the bone. The size of the bone doesn't really matter when you click here, when you put it on the screen, just that 0.77 for width and height. So again, just for convenience, I'm gonna place the bone at 0, 0, 0. I'm gonna rename the first bone as gun, and now I'm gonna create the other bones, which are trigger, clip 1, bolt 1, and option 1. So Control C, Control V, trigger, clip 1, bolt 1, and option 1. Just let me check that. Trigger, okay, that's correct. So now that we have the model and the bones, we need to assign them. So like I said, I'm gonna take the surfaces, the parts of the model of the magazine, and I'm gonna assign them to the clip 1, and so on and so on. But first, let me do something here. I'm gonna click this button, which is select by name, and I'm gonna filter out the dummies and the bones so that I only have surfaces here, because this will help me make things more organized and tidy. This is not mandatory at all. I just do this because it makes my work a lot easier, because I get shorter surface names and I know what is what. So for example, all these parts that I've selected, they do not move, they do not play anything, any role in animations. They're just the main part of the gun, let's say. So I'm gonna assign them generic. I'm gonna select them, and I'm gonna assign a generic serial name to them to make things easier for me. So after I've selected them, I go to Tools, Rename Objects. Let's put a generic name like WPN as in weapon, and I'm gonna tick the numbered box. Okay, so click Rename and close this window, and now you'll see that we have a lot of WPN surfaces. Again, this is not mandatory, as I said. You can just skip this part, but I've been doing it like this for years because it helps me know what I'm doing. So all the surfaces use the same texture. I didn't merge these ones, the hollow ones, because they use different textures. But anyway, enough talking about that, and let's get to the bones part. So as I was saying, I'm gonna select I'm gonna filter out the surfaces, and I'm gonna select the magazine, which is only one model. It could be more groups, but in this case it's just one group. Then I'm gonna click in this tab, the Modify tab. Then in Modifier list, I'm gonna look for Skin. Okay. And right here in Bones, underneath this tab, I'm gonna click Add. Let me filter out the bones only, and I'm gonna select Clip 1. Okay, so now that I have Clip 1 on a magazine, I'm gonna click Envelope. Okay, so this part is a little tricky. There must be a better way to do it, but anyway, you must drag the inner circle as in a way that it covers the whole weapon. I'm not sure it is necessary to cover the whole weapon or just the vertices of the surface you're doing, but I'm gonna go the safe way and cover everything, just not have to do it again. Okay, so we're done. Just click Skin again, and that's it. Now, the suppressor. That's not a suppressor, not a silencer. Let me rename it suppressor. Okay, so the suppressor should be related to the option 1 bone. Okay, so again, we select it, go to modifier list, skin, add option 1 bone, envelope, and we're gonna repeat this process for all the bones and all the surfaces in the model. Oh, God, I hate this part. There must be an easier way to do it. Someone who understands 3ds Max for real must know a very simple way to do it. Okay, I think Blender might be able to work on this as well, but since I've read the tutorials in 3ds Max and it's what I've been using, it's what I'm gonna show you. So the trigger, you'll notice that I've put an M letter, as in Mike, after the name of the trigger surface, as in trigger M, so that it doesn't have the same name as the bone, which is only trigger, not trigger 1. Maybe this might not be a problem in the newer versions of the resources from JK Hub, like Carcass or something, but just to make sure and not have any troubles, try not to have surfaces with the same names as bones. Okay, so that's why I name the surface as trigger M and the bone as trigger. And by the way, you must use the names of the bones as they are in the game. I can't give the bones the names I want unless I'm making custom animations. So I must use these names right here: gun, trigger, clip 1, bolt 1, option 1, or whatever the weapon I'm modifying has. So again, trigger M, skin, it uses the trigger bone, envelope, oh God. Okay, so we have the magazine, we have the suppressor, we have the trigger. Oh yeah, now we must make the bolt. Let's see how many surfaces the bolt has. Only 1. Okay, so you see here that the bolt is only bolt, not bolt M, because the bone is named bolt 1. So there shouldn't be a problem. So let's skin it, add bolt 1. Okay. My God, I hate this part. And finally, we have all the moving parts. Now we only need to skin the parts that do not move. So that would be almost everything. So Control A to select everything, and I'm gonna remove trigger M, suppressor, magazine, and bolt. Okay, so again, skin. By the way, notice that now I'm skinning multiple surfaces, multiple groups at once, so that's not a problem. For example, suppose you get a weapon model that has a very detailed magazine and it's split into 3 groups, magazine 1, 2, and 3. That's not a problem. Just select the 3 surfaces, the 3 models, the 3 groups, and skin envelope them with the clip 1 as a whole, like I'm doing right now with the gun bone, which is the most common example of that. Okay, so envelope. Okay, so that covers it up. So what now? Now we need to set up the hierarchy of the model, the surfaces and the bones. And it must mimic what we see in the default models. As if you notice here, there's like a hierarchy tree in mod view. And you will see that the bones trigger, clip 1, bolt 1, and option 1 are under the gun bone. And the surfaces are under a group called MP5 body. I think this group is arbitrary. It doesn't make a difference. You can choose whatever you want, but you need to choose one. So again, we're gonna click in schematic view right here. Okay, I'm gonna put it in hierarchy mode, and you will see that everything is unlinked. Here is every object that was in that screen, all the groups, the surfaces, the bones, the dummies that we created in the beginning, skeleton root, mesh root. So we're gonna actually set that hierarchy as it should be now. So I'll click the connect button, and as we have seen here, I'll connect the gun bone to the skeleton root. Oh, by the way, I didn't mention it. Skeleton in SOF2 is related to animations. Everything that is related to animations is related to the skeleton, and mesh is related to the surfaces, to the models. Okay, so the bones hierarchy, as they are related to animations, will go under the skeleton hierarchy. So gun, trigger, clip 1, bolt 1, option 1. Mind you that all these 4 bones are under gun. They are not under each other like a staircase. This must be set up correctly. Okay, so now, as I said, we need to have a father group, which I will choose WPN00, and I'm gonna select all the other surfaces, and I'm gonna link them to WPN. By the way, this order doesn't really matter. Okay, you can do it however you want. Just try to be organized in a way that it actually makes your work easier when you assign the textures. For example, you will see what I'm talking about later in the video, but all the WPN surfaces, the magazine, the bolt, and the trigger use one texture called mp5a4.tga. The hollow 00 to 05 use another texture, lens uses another texture, and suppressor uses another texture. So I group the surfaces in the hierarchy according to their textures because it makes my work easier later, and you will see how very soon. Okay, so now that I have all the surfaces grouped up together, I'm just gonna put them under mesh root, and our hierarchy is done. That's pretty much it in 3ds Max. Now, mind you, there's another thing that's very important. I would advise you to use the later versions of 3ds Max, such as 2022 or 2017 or whatever, just something kind of recent, and the resources from JK Hub, because the resources provided in the default SOF2 SDK for 3ds Max 5 are kind of buggy, okay, and there are a couple of extra steps. The hierarchy looks a little different in the older versions. You have another dummy called model root, under which you will put skeleton root and then mesh root. You need to add a keyframe of animation. It doesn't export smoothing groups correctly, so the shading of the weapon looks very odd in game. So anyway, that's why I'm advising you to use the modern version of 3ds Max and the resources of JK Hub. So let me just save this in case anything happens. In my SOF2 folder, I have a lot of models that unfortunately were not used. I never got to actually release a mod because I don't know how to program well. So this is the first person model of the MP5A4 with the silencer and the holographic sight. This way I'm gonna understand myself. Okay, so now that's done, I'm gonna export it as, now this is the part I told you about, XSI, the .xsi, into the SDK folder. Now the default name of SDK folder is SOF2 SDK, but I've made my own folder with the correct versions of the resources such as modview, md3view, and so on, and I call it best SDK. If you need it, just say in the comments again. I might upload this version of the SDK, but it's pretty straightforward. Okay, so base, models, weapons, ABC. I always export things into this ABC folder. Okay, I'm gonna replace it. Now, it's very important that you take a look at this window right here. It must be like this: vertex, specified, explicit, tick and untick the boxes and options according to this window, because this way you're gonna get the correct smoothing in the game. Again, I'm not someone who knows the technical details and the reasons of why that is the way it is, but that's how it has worked for me. So just press OK. Now you'll go to that ABC folder, and you will use that batch command to run carcass and compile that XSI you've just exported. If everything runs correctly, like it did, you will hear that classic Windows beep. You can check the carcass results to see if there are any errors. As you see, there are no errors. And you get a nice GLM file, which is your MP5 now in GLM and compiled according to the animations of the MP5. So what do we need to do now? Now we need to open it with the hexadecimal editor, sorry, and assign the correct skeleton to it and the correct texture to each group. And now you will see why I said that ordering things, grouping them according to the texture makes stuff easier. So in case you don't know, let me show you in another way. In case you don't know the animation that the weapon uses, there are multiple ways of checking it. Okay, so one of them is going to your double Soldier of Fortune double Helix folder and checking the in-view file. So let's look for mp5.glm, and you will see that uses skeletons, weapons, mp5 frames files. Okay, another way is you could go to the skeletons folder, weapons, and you'll see, oops, that's in the 101 update, sorry. Skeletons, weapons, mp5, here it is. Okay, modview, I think you should be able to see that in modview as well. Let's see. Probably, yeah, I don't know how, but there's probably a way to tell from modview. But anyway, I know it's mp5, so it's skeletons, weapons, mp5/mp5. Okay, instead of ABC, of course. Okay, so this is done. Now it will use mp5 animations, and now we need to assign the textures to the groups. Do you remember the WPN groups I did earlier? Here they are: WPN00, WPN1, WPN2, and so on, all the way down here. So it can get pretty annoying actually to replace all these textures individually. There probably is a better way to do it, but here's how I do it. Okay, by textures, what I mean is, let me show you another example from SOF2 itself. Models. You see, here's the AK-74 model, for example. Here it is, a GLM file made by the guys at Ravensoft. You know, look, the surfaces, gun barrel R, which is for the right side, muzzle, and they all point to the texture, which is models, weapons, AK-74, AK-74, which is the default AK-74 texture, which is this one. Okay, so that's what you need to do with your custom textures. So I know that my custom textures will be placed at models/weapons/mp5a4, and that the texture that this group uses is mp5a4. You do not need to use the extension here. It's not necessary. Do not put .tga or .png here. Just leave the name and it will be fine. So as you've seen, there's a lot of groups, and what I'm gonna do is this. I know it takes 4 places and 2 more lines, right? So I'm gonna copy the hexadecimal equivalent of that. I put it in the notepad here. And what the default unfilled one looks like. Okay. So yep, I'm gonna go Control R for HXD. I'm gonna look for these values and I'm gonna replace them with these ones. And I'm gonna replace all of them. Okay, I need to fix some things because this model specifically uses different textures. Now, this is not necessary. I'm just doing this because of a little of OCD, but you can leave everything in lowercase. I mean, the MP5 here, it doesn't matter if it's lowercase or uppercase, as long as it matches the name. And that's valid for the WPN, the names of the surfaces themselves. But I like to have things tidy, so I'm gonna replace the text WPN for WPN, uppercase. Magazine, first letter uppercase, bold, trigger M, holo, as in holographic site. Let's see the textures. What did I call it in the MP7? I'm gonna use the same texture. EOTech. I called it EOTech. So MP models weapons MP5A4 EOTech. By the way, you cannot use backspace here. Okay, cancel. If you use it, this pop-up will show up. Cancel it because it will change the bytes, the order of the bytes, and that will screw the whole thing up. And these are not dots, so do not put dots here thinking it will erase something you've done. As you see, the dots are 2e in hexadecimal, not 00, which is the empty value. Okay, so okay, so there are not many surfaces for these ones, so I'll do them manually like this. There probably is a better way of doing that, but I don't know. I just want to get this done and released, and I'm not gonna learn it now. Oh, lens, yes, lens uses lens surface. So here there's an extra character. I just erase it by putting 00 here. The suppressor will use the suppressor. Okay, so it's done. That's it. The model is basically ready to be used. Okay, so let's try it in game. So I'll go to my MP folder. Let me get my MP5A4 here. I'm gonna show you a little bit of how to set up the shaders as well before we get started. Delete this. Okay, so I have the textures that I'm gonna use are these ones. You see I have a diffuse texture and a specular texture, which is used to make things look shiny and nice. And it shares textures with this one. Lens and EOTech, here it is. Okay, now the shaders part, which is very important. So here's, as you see, here's the main texture, MP5A4, and I'm assigning the diffuse texture and the specular texture to it. So how does the specular texture gets used? Okay, so let me just get the shaders from the MP7, which already has it set up for the holographic site. So it has a lens, it has an EOTech. I'm just going to replace MP7A1 with MP5A4. Okay, so now I have lens, EOTech, and MP5A4. Oh yes, I was almost forgetting. We need the suppressor as well. So here, suppressor. Okay. Let me just double check it. MP5A4, EOTech, suppressor lens. Okay. Let me get the suppressor texture, which I was forgetting. It's in the MP5A5 folder. I'm going to release those models in the upcoming weeks. I hope so. Just to make the experience of playing SOF2 a little better. So, okay, the default MP5 model is, in case you don't know, located at models, weapons, MP5, mp5.glm, and that's what we're going to replace. So we're going to create an MP5 folder inside models, weapons, in this PK3, right? And that ABC model that we just fiddled with in the hex editor, we're gonna name it MP5 and place it in here, and place it in your base folder or your MP folder. Here it is. Now let's launch the game and hope that everything is all right. So let me use a bit of cheats here to get the MP5. And here it is. Here's the MP5. As you can see, I probably screwed something up with the shaders. My suppressor is transparent, but that's not a problem. I probably chose the wrong model or something. I'll have to check it. But anyway, that's how it's done. For rolled models, it's basically the same thing. Let me just show you that when you reload, for instance, the magazine is removed, the bolt moves when you reload, or when you draw the weapon as well. You can make static weapons. It's much easier, but they don't look as nice as these ones. Okay. I'm not going to investigate now in the video why that's happening. I'm just going to show you something else, which is the rolled model. Okay, the rolled model is inside the same folder. Okay, it just uses different bones because it has different animations. So a bone for the gun as a whole, a bone which indicates where the shells will be ejected from, and in the case of the MP5, 2 bones to indicate where the muzzle flash effect will be played. When you're gonna make the rolled model in 3ds Max, it's basically the same process. You don't need to place the bones at the right places. You just place them at 0, 0, 0, and you name them according to these ones. And for the rolled model, the magazines and moving parts are not used in SOF2. It has very simple animations. So you just need to select all the surfaces and skin wrap them with the bone gun. You don't need to do anything with these bones, just have them in your hierarchy. You don't need to envelope anything with them, and you will be done for. Okay, so that's it for today. I think I'm gonna upload this to YouTube and post it on Discord. In case you guys have any doubts or you want any videos, maybe a shorter video with not so much talking, just me doing the process so you can see how to do it in a faster manner, just say it. Okay, so that's it. Good night, guys. Okay, I lied. I am gonna investigate it now, and I already found the reasons. So the first problem in my MP5 is that there were some details that were wrong in the holographic site, and as you can see, I probably got distracted from talking, and in this group Holo05 I used the incorrect texture. I used the MP5A4 texture when I should have been using the EOTech texture. Okay, so that's it. I added it inside the PK3 already. Let me see if that works out. It does. And the other problem, which was making the silencer transparent, was that when I copied the shader and just changed the texture, I copied this example, which is the lens, and the lens, of course, has transparency functions. So I should have copied this one like I did now, and it should be looking good. Let's see how it goes now. Let's cross our fingers and hope that the MP5 is okay now. Use a little cheats again. And there it is, looking mighty fine. That's the MP5 with the holographic side and the suppressor. Alright, so that's it, my friends. See you in the next video.